I'm going to talk about air filter, how to service your air filter. This is a 2011 Audi Q5. I just checked the service interval list from Audi just to make sure I'm not giving you bad information. They say that the first time you change this air filter is at 55,000 miles. The second time you change it is at 115,000 miles. Some of these cars might only go through 2 air filters their entire life. That's a little Audi joke, but they don't need changed all that often. But it's really easy to check it. Maybe you're a new owner and you want to go through it and you want to check some things. Well, it should be pretty easy to go through and check what's going on here. So let's cinch up the camera here and show you how easy this thing is to service. First off, what we have here is the air box. This is the mass airflow sensor. This is your connector, right, that goes to the mass airflow sensor. We have a little safety tab right here. We just pull this safety tab back and we can disconnect it. It's not even necessary to take this ram air scoop off. You can keep it right on there. Let me flip the camera around to get you a better view now. But before I do that, there's only one more thing. There's this clamp right here, and then there's 6 bolts down here. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, and then that one's tucked down in there. So we gotta take this hose off. Like I said, you don't have to take this off, so I'm not going to. So this is a flat blade screwdriver, or you could use a 7mm. I don't really use flat blade screwdrivers that often, so I prefer to use the 7mm. So you just zip that loose a little bit, and then we're gonna pop this off. I already showed you how to take this connector off. Remember, you just pull this little safety tab back and then you push the tab down and pull it back. If you just yank it off, there's a little tiny retaining tab on here, and then it's not ever gonna stay on the way it needs to if you just haphazardly yank it off. You could break this little tab. So now we just have the 6 bolts. So I'm gonna take my little power tool here and I'm gonna move over to my T30, my Torx. And now, the difficult one right here is just down in this corner pocket. All of these are really easy to get to, so I don't feel the need to move the camera directly above these bolts. See, just 6 bolts. They stay in the place. You don't pull them out. And then this cover right here, we just set it to the side. This is just a drop-in air filter like this. You see? The factory air filters have this pre-filter on it, right? You can see that this one has a little bit of age to it, but it really doesn't look all that bad. These actually do last a very long time. Now, you can tell that this is an OEM filter because obviously it's got the 4 rings right here. This is the date right here, 08/17. So I believe that's the month and the year. Made in Italy. Ah, interesting. So yeah, they don't probably make this. This is probably a man filter. So what I would suggest is if you put a different filter in, you know, maybe take a black marker, a Sharpie or something. And if it's not an OEM filter with a date on it, it's a nice good practice to just write the date on the end of it. You know, that's nice to get into habits like that. You know, some people clean off the top of the airbox and just write it directly on the airbox with a paint pen. If you don't really care about the aesthetics underneath the hood, which really it doesn't matter, just go ahead and do that. Now, whenever you replace this air filter, it's always a good idea to take compressed air and blow out the crud in your airbox. There's really not that much crud down in there, but there can be bugs and leaves and debris. It doesn't typically get through here because this is a really decent design. You see this factory design has a little snow catcher deal in here. So, you know, I played around with other videos in the past showing silly, you know, modifications where you can take this out and you can trim things to get better ram airflow and stuff like that. But this Q5 is not like the A4. The A4 actually has louvers right here that block this. So some people were ignorant and were telling me things, but they didn't even know that a Q5 has completely open access to this. But it's just kind of funny. Anyway, I wasn't even really being serious about those videos. Let's just get back to this air filter. You just, if it looks like this, you know, sometimes you can just say, bang it around a few times. Got a big old dust cloud. That might be enough just to, you know, service it a little bit. You know, on my skid steer over here, this is a really, really dirty machine. You play in the dirt with this thing. You know, you take the air filters out of this machine about every 50 hours and do that same thing, and then maybe possibly blow it out with compressed air. So, but these are cheap enough. You can just toss a new one in. So you see how easy that is? Now we're gonna just toss this back on, put it all back together. I believe that this was serviced correctly. So the last time this was installed, this air filter in 2017, it was probably at 55,000 miles. You see, I jumped the gun here. You don't want to put this hose on first. You want to bolt it on first, because this one here in the corner pocket is impossible to get to with that hose on. If you don't know what you're doing with your power tools, you can strip stuff out very easily. This is a very weak power tool. It's almost just like a screwdriver. So we're gonna plug our connector back in. We're gonna pop this hose back on, and then we're just gonna zip this screw back on. This worm clamp is what I like to call it. Not necessary to get this very tight at all. Let me show you how to take this off real quick though. I like to take my fingers down here, and it takes a little bit of wiggling. You see, the idea on this one is it's got little catches right here, all the way across, and on the bottom as well. So, whenever you put it back in, you kind of just want to push this back in like this, and then you want to put the bottom lip in first, and then you just want to press this top lip back. You see how easy that was? Nothing's broken. So, real quick, I recently did a video on a K&N air filter. I cleaned a couple K&N air filters. I think they're perfectly fine to run those as well. I would run aftermarket air filters or whatever. If you got an air filter on it, it's probably going to be fine. The worst thing that you can do, and it's still not really that bad, but the worst thing you can do is put a cone filter on it, and especially some of the air filter designs have the cone filter that comes way down in here. And then if you're going through a big puddle, or if you're, you know, driving like a normal person without any care of the monsoon that just came through town, then you could possibly suck up a mini lake, and it could go straight into your engine and hydrolock it. So, you know, most people aren't going to drive in those scenarios. I'm being a little bit crazy, but it is possible if you have a cone filter just to suck water straight in your engine. I've replaced a few engines from being hydrolocked, and guess what? Liquid doesn't compress. Air compresses, but liquid doesn't compress. So you're gonna bend your rods. I mean, you're gonna bend things in your engine, and it's gonna get water in your engine, and it's gonna be a bad time. So I'm perfectly fine with clean K&N air filters or aftermarket air filters or whatever. If whatever gets through an aftermarket air filter, it's not going to hurt the engine. That's just my personal opinion. But if you want to be extra particular, stay with OEM. I don't care. That's perfectly fine too. I don't care. I've had many engines apart, but most of them have all had the OEM air filter installed. So I don't have enough experience actually seeing things scratch cylinder walls from bad air filters, but I've personally never been aware of that being a possibility. I don't think anything, I'll reiterate it one more time, I don't think anything big enough is going to get through any aftermarket air filter to damage anything inside your engine. And it's just my personal opinion. The biggest thing you need to worry about aftermarket air filters is the location and if it's going to suck water into your engine. So there you go. Your service interval, your inspection, your airbox procedure, that's a video. But I'm gonna give you one more bonus thing, because actually I was just taking this airbox out. I didn't really need to show you any of that. I'm actually taking this whole engine out. So really, what I typically do is I just take the whole thing off like this. This part right here though, that's why I'm showing you this. This can break. If you're not super careful with how you release this from its grommet, you can break this plastic strap. And then we're just gonna wiggle and pull a little bit more. And if you'll notice, one of these grommets came out and one of them stayed. So we're just gonna pull this, see how it's a little bit, is it out? Yeah, it's a little bit out of its spot. If I wasn't careful, I wouldn't have paid attention and it could have possibly dropped and I could have lost it. So we're gonna take this and we're gonna put it on the bottom of the air box for safekeeping. There, I popped it back on. And then whenever you push those back in, it's nice to put just maybe a little bit of lube so it pops back in those grommets perfectly. And then the same thing over here. You want to support it when you reinstall it so it doesn't break this and it doesn't break this. Another thing that I've seen is people can lose this intermediate grommet right here, this little rubber insulator, if you will. So don't make any of those mistakes. And hey, what's up, Derby?